Hello and welcome. This is Rasheem, and we are about to start our show. Tonight's topic is immigration, not just a Hispanic issue. And we have three special guests joining us from three different parts of the world. And they're just going to basically share a lot of their personal experiences. Right now, first we have Miss Leanne Tati. She's going to come in and she's going to be talking with us. Then joining us, we will have Mr. Jonathan Chase. And then we will have Dr. Crystal Lee joining us. And I'm going to let them kind of tell a little bit more about their experience. I felt like this was a very important issue to discuss. Immigration is and has been for over 100 years a very important and controversial topic of debate in our country. And a lot of the times when we do discuss immigration, it's typically around the issue, like it's made to be more or less of a Hispanic issue. And so to add a different lens to it, to be more inclusive, to help us to understand just how complex this whole immigration thing is, we're going to talk to people from three different parts of the world so that they can all share what their unique and individual experiences were. And they're still coming on. Right here, if my camera is, if this is upright, we have Jonathan Chase, who joined us first, and Leon Tati and Dr. Crystal Lee will be joining us shortly. One of the things I want to do a quick overview of, I'm getting a little bit of static, let me turn down my volume, that there's been several waves of immigration in the U.S., from the first colonists from England and other European countries to the forced migration of African slaves. There was another wave in between 1800s and 1872. Primarily, people came from Western Europe, Irish. 1/3 came from Ireland. Another third came from Germany. One of the first immigration laws that came to pass was 1875. It was one of the first restrictive laws, restricting who could come into the country. And then in 1882, we had the Chinese Expulsion Act. And then we started to get more specific and exclude certain countries from being able to come into the country. And today we are still discussing the issue of immigration, whether it's immigration laws, immigration reform. And I just wanted to make sure that we had these three fantastic people here joining us. I will go ahead and throw the ball to Mr. Jonathan Chase first. I want us to go around first, and each of you tell us what country you are from.
Hi, I am Jonathan Chase. As mentioned, I am from the beautiful Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago, nestled in the very southernmost part of the Caribbean, just north of Venezuela. Tiny Twin Island state, population 1.2 million. We speak English.
Listen, Jonathan is a pro. He ain't new to this. He true to this. Y'all better know.
Well.
All right, and then let's go ahead and throw it to Miss Leanne Tati. Please let us know where you're from.
I am from Guyana, South America, the top of South America between Venezuela and Brazil, and Suriname. So right at the top of South America, Guyana. English is our language as well. Only English. Right at the top of South America.
Thank you. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, Dr. Crystal Lee, let us know where you are from.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Lee. I am from the beautiful and significantly larger than Trinidad island of Jamaica. Population 2.8 million.
Hashtag no shade.
English is our primary language, but we do have a Creole that we speak called Patois.
Fantastic. Thank you again so much for agreeing to participate in something like this and for joining. Also, thank you for everyone who's with us live, as well as anyone and everyone who is listening to the replay right now. As we know, there's definitely very many ways and reasons that people end up migrating, whether it's for them to get economic opportunity, search for a better future, escape persecution, political reasons, exposure, and to be closer to a family member. I'd like to hear from each of you. What was your primary reason for coming to the U.S. from your beautiful home countries? Anyone could take it first.
I'll go first. My primary reason for migrating was to go to school. When I got done with high school, I applied to come to college in the States, and I got into my alma mater, Morgan State, and that's why I came.
I came across, not exactly by choice, with my family. My dad applied to the diversity visa lottery, and he won permanent residency or green cards for all of us. So I was 16 when I came over, so we all came together for better opportunity.
Okay.
I came over to be with my wife, to marry my wife, but I was already a permanent resident at the time. My sister became a permanent resident because she's a scientist in a field that the United States needed, and so she got a path to residency and eventually citizenship through that. She filed for my dad, and my dad filed for me, I think, when I was 17 or 16. And then by the time I was 27, I was good to go.
That's all it took, just 10 years.
Short years
so
later,
that's interesting, Jonathan. You talk about your experience and how it took 10 years. What are some other familiar pathways to citizenship that you're familiar with?
Well, we talked about three ways that are pathways to legal permanent resident status and then citizenship. The diversity lottery that Leanne mentioned. Crystal came up as a student, and she has a work permit now as a professional. So there are people who, based on the job that they do or the skills that they have, they can get permanent resident status if there's like a deficit of people skilled in those areas. And of course, there's a family member who can file for you. I'm sure there are other paths to citizenship, but I think those are the most common ones. What's that? That's right. Of course, I forgot that one. You can marry a citizen as well. They still have to go through lots of paperwork. It's not like snap your fingers, but so, yeah, those are the ways that I.
One of the things that I hear a lot from people who are on different sides of this whole immigration law, immigration reform, I hear them often say, "We don't care about immigrants coming. We just want them to come here legally." Why do you think, I know all three of you came here legally, why do you think it's so much of a challenge for people to get legal status? You talked about legal permanent residency first, and then you get citizenship. Tell me about that process and what does it entail?
Lots of money and time, and a lot of people cannot afford the money that it takes to file all these applications. Everything that you need to do, it has a cost attached to it. So that prohibits a lot of people in my experience.
Yeah, I think perspective is so important, because some people are moving because they want a better life, and a better life as in, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, things are a 4, and I want it to be a 7 or an 8, and so that's why they move. But their life is still pretty much together. Some people are fleeing a country where it's not safe for them to be, and my life's like a 1 or a 0.5 out of 10, and I just want it to be a 3. And so I think those are two different things. And so if you're fleeing somewhere that's not safe for you or your family to be, then the human inside of me says, obviously you have a different motivation, and you would take a different path. It's not exactly easy. to become. Like I said, sometimes it can take 10 years, sometimes it can take 5 or 6 years to do it legally and do it the right way. And to people who would say, well, why don't you just do it the right way? I would say, well, you first. Because I mean, largely apart from native peoples, America is a country of immigrants, most of whom did not have legal permanent resident status when they took up here. It was just colonized. And I think immigration and illegal immigration is not a byproduct, it's a child of colonialism. And if you go somewhere and you take people's stuff and you take people, you use their labor and you use their natural resources, and you leave them with no infrastructure, they're going to come back and take your stuff. Whether it's an opportunity or whether it's just education, or whether it's business and making use of your markets or your infrastructure, that has happened ever since people have been pillaging villages.
You talk about some of the resources and the transfer of human resources as well as other resources. And I remember having a conversation, I believe, with Crystal at one point. Tell me a little bit about I don't want to say brain dump, but what is the impact, would you say, on your home countries on this strong desire for people to migrate? How does that impact would you say, Dr. Lee, your home countries?
So like Jonathan said, a good amount of migration, I can't speak intelligently about how much, but from my own personal experience, a good amount of immigration comes as a result of there being limited opportunities in our home country. For example, for me, I know when I got done with my undergraduate degree, my dad said, don't come back unless you have a master's, because everybody has an undergraduate degree at home and they're working in all kinds of different jobs that you wouldn't necessarily, 10 years prior, you wouldn't have needed a bachelor's degree to work in. And so he wanted me to get a leg up before I left, before I came back, actually. And then, even after that, even after I got my master's degree, he was like, there's nothing here for you. The question is, if you come back home, where are you going to work? How are you going to afford to live by yourself or to buy a house, or, all these things that are part of what you think are parts of life growing up, getting your own place and having a family, it was not a reasonable expectation at the time that I would be able to do all that, even though I had a master's degree. And so I made the decision to stay. So I think for me, it was a matter of opportunities being more available here than they were home.
That definitely makes sense. Thank you so much for joining Kente of Indie Radio. Leanne, tell me a little bit about some of the, I won't say stupid because that's not nice. Tell me about some of the more curious questions that people ask you.
First one is, do I speak English? Okay. I said earlier, English is my first language. Guyana is known as the only English-speaking country in South America. So, that is that. We speak English. Yes, we're in South America, but Spanish is not one of our languages. It's just English. So that is one of the most common questions that I have. Then people tell me I speak English really well. So, that's another thing too. Then they always think that Guyana is in Africa, so that's something else as well. So, those are the most common, interesting questions that I receive.
Right. What about you, Crystal?
I've also had what language do you speak? I've been asked, when did I learn to speak American? I have been asked, how come you're not a citizen yet? You've been here forever. And it makes me want to scratch my eyes out. Like that's not how it works. It's not, oh, you've been here for 15 years, here's citizenship. It's absolutely not like that. And I mean, people don't know. And so it's, it's a teachable moment. But there comes up, like, I've had that teachable moment with people way too often. I'm over it. So, hopefully, things like this will help people understand what the experience is like, and encourage folks to go research and look for things look for answers to the questions that they have. But the aren't you a citizen yet really gets under my skin.
Yeah. So I think when you live somewhere that's not been a traditional colonial power, you tend to have a broader view of the world. And so everyone who comes from somewhere that was at one point captured or colonized by one of these powers, by, I guess maybe it's like some kind of evolutionary response, you always look to see what's going on in the world around you. And so you have this kind of general awareness of what's going on, particularly if you live on a small island. But if you live somewhere like, the United Kingdom or the United States or Portugal or Spain, your country is your world and everything else is just really not, it's not really relevant. So you don't learn about it as much. And that's been my experience, as much as people who live somewhere that has been colonized. Just a generalization. One of the silliest questions I got asked, and it's because Jamaica is popular and has been made popular in the media as kind of a representative for what the Caribbean is, the English-speaking Caribbean is. People ask me what parts of Jamaica is Trinidad in. And so I've had that question several times, and people don't know where Trinidad is or what Trinidad is about. And so when you ask us to introduce ourselves and say where we're from, that spiel is very polished because I've had to give it 1,000 times. Oh, what do we do in Trinidad? Oh, well, we have oil. No, tourism is not a big deal. Yes, we have carnival. Oh, like anyone from Trinidad has got used to fielding these questions.
With those questions, with coming to another country, there's some adjustments. There's some differences that you experience that you're like, okay, like this is the realization. I'm not, like Dorothy says, Kansas. Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. What was the experience that you had that kind of paints a really clear picture of what your adjustment like from coming to another country to coming to the U.S.? We'll start with you, Leanne.
I'm going to tell you. So we have pictures. First of all, when we came to this country, it was July 7th, 1997, okay? Now, you have to remember that everything we knew about America is what we saw on TV most of the time, and we didn't have a lot of TV, so it was very, very minuscule and targeted. So we came here on July 7th, 1997 to JFK, and all of us are wearing long pants, okay, turtlenecks, and vests, because we thought it would be so cold here, okay?
In July.
July. All right, so that right there was
okay. Well, that speaks to something to me. That speaks to like, how things show up in the media in other countries. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that to me was, like, okay, you're not in Guyana anymore. You're hot as hell in July with your turtleneck and your vest on. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Dr. Lee, tell me about your a moment where you realize, of course, it's probably a long plane ride. You realize you're not at home, but what was a event that you can say that crystallized for you that like, this is not Jamaica?
The thing that stands out to me, well, first of all, like Leanne, all I had was television. I visited the States, but vacation is completely different than living here. So really, I thought that school in the United States was like Saved by the Bell, because that's all we had, right? So of course, I went to an HBCU, which is decidedly not like Saved by the Bell. And the next thing was, just walking across campus. First of all, it was the summertime when I came. I came also in August, but I found inside every building to be freezing cold. So my lips are all dry and chapped. I'm wearing like long johns in September. Folks are outside talking about short sweater, and I'm like in every sweater I can find. But also, the way people spoke to each, like on campus, when I was walking across campus, folks were just very, they used a lot. Every time I heard a curse word, I was like that's not how that's not how I grew up, you know. So that's for sure. The first time that happened, I was like, yeah, definitely not in your comfort zone anymore.
Okay. And you, Chase, what was your experience like? What was the moment that kind of crystallized for you? I'm not in Trinidad. I can obviously tell from this right here that I am not home.
So I was very fortunate to have traveled to the U.S. several times as a child and spent a week here, 2 weeks there on vacation. And before I spent 4 years at college, I did a year of high school in Gainesville, where I lived with my sister. And so that was kind of a very gradual way to ease into America, because I had Trinidad at home and America outside. And I think because of that, I didn't really grasp many of the differences, because I still had Trinidadian food when I wanted to. I still heard Trinidadian accents and voices. And I was still able to keep up with everyone back home very easily. But I think the main shock I had was when I started college. I also went to an HBCU. Well, all three of us went to HBCUs. And I heard a police siren, and I thought, wow, what's going to happen? And I had never, ever had that thought before when I was back home in Trinidad, because I felt, years later now, I have the perspective. I understand that in Trinidad, I felt at home and like I belonged, but in the United States, particularly cut off from my immediate family, other than those who were at school with me, was, well, I don't belong here. And so maybe the cops are out to get me. And I mean, I was perfectly legal, but that's still this fear that I felt that I had never felt before. And then that was when I realized.
So you talk about,
for sure,
you kind of had like more of a subtle, like it wasn't as much of a shock because you had experiences where you visited. So your transition was probably a lot different. Tell me about how you connected in terms of to other Black and brown people. Because I know that there's sometimes where when you say Black, people don't realize that there's diversity within Black. Like all of the skin is not the same culture. What were some of the relationships around that particular, like your relationships and your social navigation for you? What was that like for you, Chase?
I think I'm just going to say it, I was relatively socially awkward at university. And I think none of that was down to me being an immigrant, or maybe not much of it was down to me being an immigrant. It's just who I was at the time. I had always been like skipped ahead in classes, and so I was immature for my education, I think, along the way, and I had just kind of settled into that rut. And I think I didn't have many problems. I very quickly identified as Black. Before I was Trinidadian, and everyone was a Trinidadian around me, and that was fine. I very quickly identified as Black, and it amazed me and kind of puzzled me that many of my other Caribbean international students at Lincoln University did not immediately identify as Black and kind of set themselves apart. And I'm sure that's something to do with my upbringing and my parents doing a good job of that. But there are some Caribbean people who come to the United States and think, well, yeah, I'm not Black. And it's not right. That they don't think that their skin tone is Black. Do you think that's possibly because they see Black as just being African American? For whatever various reasons.
No?
No, I think it's because we get exposed to TV and the media that says Black people in America commit crimes and they're violent and they're dangerous and they're lazy and this, and you get inundated with this information and you don't have a chance to experience it yourself. And then and then you have this you have this preconceived notion of what it is to be Black in America that is completely false and
Thank
based
you.
on
My husband,
racist
because
media.
I thought, I had this stereotype about American men. Now they don't.
Say that again. I'm sorry. It sounded a little bit.
No, I wanted no parts with my husband because of the stereotypes that are out there. About American men. So I wasn't interested because of that. But that's just a learning curve. You have to be around Americans, Black Americans, to see that they're not all the same. They're all different.
Yeah. I also think that. Sorry to cut you off, Leanne.
No.
Similar to what Jonathan said. So Jonathan said he identified as Black before Trinidadian, but I was definitely the opposite. I identified as Jamaican before Black. And it took me a very long time to kind of understand where that came from. It was very important to me. And it was very stressful, especially being a student at an HBCU, right? And then when I went to graduate school, I worked in, multicultural affairs, and people looked at me and identified me as part of this group that I did not necessarily identify as part of. And it was a very stressful experience because I was expected to have knowledge and, information, and I was expected to feel certain ways about certain things and interpret certain things in certain ways. And that wasn't natural for me. And so it was a very difficult, anxiety-producing experience my first maybe 7 or 8 years here in the States, until I realized, okay, just because you are identified as Black doesn't take away from anything else that you may identify as. And I came to realize, which I still think there are so many people who don't recognize the tremendous diversity within the group that's classified as Black, that's classified strictly by the color of their skin. And I think from the immigrant perspective, it's the same thing. You hear the word immigrant and you think about one group of people with one kind of experience. And for every individual, the situation is different. And I think if we thought about the issues around immigration, especially in this kind of political atmosphere, which is crazy, I think if we thought about it not so much as an issue of this whole group of people that we have to deal with, and think about it more as, okay, how, like, these are individuals, these are separate situations. I think it might help with, the narrative that we're hearing a lot nowadays.
Yeah, no, I I definitely sympathize and understand with that multiple identities, right? Because Black is a social construct. Race is a social construct that's really not based in biology. And then within Black, there's still several ethnicities, several cultures, right? We have Black Hispanic, Black Latino, Black from the UK, Black Trinidadian, Black Jamaican. You have all of these different things. And I think sometimes we are just associated Black with African American, not realize one is a social construct, and the other, and you still have your ethnic, and you still have your culture, and your different foods, and your different music, and all of these different things that you just grow to appreciate. So I love that both of you mentioned that. You hit on a little bit, Crystal, in terms of that challenge with having, the adjustment here, and the challenge with having to explain certain things. And all three of you have been here for a little while. Tell me about when you go back home after you've been here for a little while. How are you perceived, accepted, talked to? What is your relationship like with your home country, and more specifically, like with your home country family? And I want to start with you, Dr. Lee.
So first of all, I've been in the States for 16 years. I do not speak anymore in the way that like my family speaks. My accent is very different, and it's one of the first things that's brought up. When the way I say certain things, I don't hear it really. One of the most impactful moments for me a few years ago was when I went home and I actually heard the Jamaican accent. I had never heard it before. I don't know if that makes sense to folks. You know, everybody has an accent. If it's familiar to you, you don't really hear it. And so when I went back home and I was able to hear that accent, it really hurt me, because you know, it made me feel kind of, you know, different. And my sisters tell me all the time, "Oh, you're not Jamaican anymore." Yeah, my dad calls me the American. You know, and the next thing too is that I've been here so long. I've spent almost half my life in the United States, and it's difficult for me to figure out. I don't relate to Jamaica in the way that I'm able to relate to the United States. And when I say that, I mean, you know, if I'm walking around somewhere in, you know, Baltimore City or whatever, I can basically tell, oh, this is a safe. I'm all right. I'm safe. You know, that's not a threat. This is not a threat. It's harder for me to do that when I'm home, and so I depend a lot on the people who are around me. You know, if they feel safe, then I feel safe. If they're okay with going here, then I'm okay with going here. But I can't tell for myself anymore. And you know, from my perspective, it feels like I don't belong in any particular place. Obviously, I'm Jamaican. I identify very strongly as Jamaican. You know, my family is still there. You know, but when I go home, I feel like a visitor. And then when I'm here, I'm this immigrant who, you know, you know, you hear all these things about immigrants, and you know, I don't identify with that. That's not necessarily my experience, but there's not really a place where I can say for sure I feel like this is home for me. So that's kind of a difficult, you know, that's kind of a difficult experience, like a difficult place to be personally for me.
And what about you, Chase?
I think it's I'm selfish, and so when I'm in Trinidad, I am just so elated to be in the land of my birth, and I think I'm fortunate compared to Crystal. Is although I've also spent almost half of my life in the United States, I've spent I started a little bit younger, and I spent intermittent periods back home and here. So I didn't have a 10-year, period when I was only in Trinidad for 2 weeks or 2 weeks every year. I've had periods of a year or so, and I've worked and been a grown up in Trinidad as well. And I think that has allowed me to really cherish when I am back home. And I always feel like, oh, it's so great to hear Trinidadian accents or voices on the street, and to we have a very vibrant slang, and so I want to hear what the new phrases are, and eat all of the comfort food. And so from a very self-centered, selfish perspective, it's like, it's fantastic to be here. I love it. I don't want to leave. I think it I've always kept a very tight circle, and so the people who I socialize with, who I hang out with, who I befriend, who I spend time with when I am home, they are happy to have me. And
I could
everybody
appreciate
else,
that.
I could.
And you, Leanne?
Well, for me, like Jonathan, I am selfish too. I am always happy to be home. And it will always be my home, even if it doesn't want me. And what I say that to mean is that, like Crystal, my accent definitely has changed. And the moment I open up my mouth, anyone knows that I'm not native anymore. So with that, of course, comes they can take advantage of you. That's okay. I have a few extra dollars. I can give it to them. I'm talking about like the market people or whatever. They know that you're not from there anymore, so they tend to price gouge and all of that. But like Jonathan, I love to be home. I still have family there. And if I can have it, especially if Trump becomes president, anywho, I can be at home, you know. Problem is, you were talking about the brain drain, or I think that's what you were alluding to earlier, is that, you know, most of the qualified people have left, right? So at home, they have local people and they are qualified. They don't pay them enough. So if I wanted to go back home to live, I cannot support my lifestyle. That is my main thing about, you know, my lifestyle, why I want to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely understand that and why that would be. It's like a bittersweet, like being here is bittersweet, you know, because you get certain advantages or opportunities, but there's still an aspect of yourself. It's still part of yourself, still, you know, still there. And you talked about it a little bit too earlier, Leanne. I want to know more about what are the things that are misconceptions that you want people to know that are not true about immigrants. I'm going to start with you.
I said that one, we don't want all of your jobs. We just want a better life. You know, and for this, that could mean anything. Imagine coming from another country where you don't have much, you don't have anything. So for me or somebody else, working at Target is a better life because let's say they make $7 an hour. It's better than the dollar or two that they were making at home. Now, you always hear pull yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever. And that's exactly what immigrants do. Like they know what it's like to not have anything. Okay? So when they come, they just want to make life better for themselves. They start off working where they have to, and they build just like you. Don't take anything from you. It's only there because the opportunities are here. You have the same, even better opportunities than we do. I got off on a tangent. I apologize.
No, that's not a tangent at all. I'm surprised that's all you saying. Look, we don't want your job. We ain't trying to take all your stinking jobs. Calm down.
We have better opportunities than we do, you know? So just leave us alone. We just want a small, you know, portion to make ourselves better. That's all.
I think to follow up on that too, I really dislike this whole the immigrant is here to take your job. Kind of, you know, parts of the narrative that you always hear, because the truth is that the employer is who is refusing to pay the wage that, you know, I guess an American would ask for or would demand.
Yeah.
And yes, there are people who are willing to take the wage that they are offering, which is significantly lower than somebody else might take. But that's not the immigrant's fault. The immigrant, that's capitalism, exactly. So for you to
That's your
turn
beautiful
around
capitalism.
and be mad at the person who, like Leanne says, is literally just trying to survive, is just trying to make a life for themselves and their families, is just trying to be able to make some money and live some kind of dream, the American dream, the Guyanese dream, the Jamaican dream, the Trinidadian dream, we're just trying to do the best that we can for ourselves and for our families. And to be blamed for taking these jobs makes no sense to me, because it's not as if I said, this is what I'm going to take and I will not take anymore. You know, I'm going to take the $7 and I will not take $10 an hour for this job. That's not how it works. So to blame the immigrants is completely unfair and it's asinine.
And I think it's also the United States and a lot of places, Britain, the UK, everywhere in Europe, could do well, I think, to take a different approach to dealing with immigration. And yes, you can say that immigrants put a strain on the resources that the nation they're coming to have. But for the most part, all of the nations that immigrants come to, well, you have made your bed and now you have to lie down in it. You went to these countries and you colonized, and these people say, oh, you have nice things over there, here I come. But moving past that, if you look at immigrants as a resource rather than a drain, there's so much that you can, there's so much that a positive outlook can take. And so I always find it incredible that people can look down on Latino and Latina immigrants in the United States. Because for starters, if you're white in America, you belong here less than if you're Latino or Latina, because a lot of them were here before. Mexico is a lot smaller now because of some land theft that happened. But regardless of that, you have people who are doing jobs that you are not willing to do, and that they perform an absolutely vital role in society in all, and no one does one thing. There are Trinidadians who are taxi drivers, there are Trinidadians who are doctors, there are Jamaican or Jamaican born police officers, and people who do. Immigrants do every kind of job there is. They're not doing just the job that you want. And I think if you want to thump your chest and be proud of democracy and capitalism, I think you have to understand that it comes with certain sacrifices, but two, also certain benefits. And those benefits are living in a richer world with more diverse people. And I think if you can't see that your life is made better by spending time with people who have different experiences than you, then I don't know what to say, but maybe you should close your borders. But while the borders are not closed, then you should just deal with what diversity is and what immigration is.
Right. Yeah, let me give a shout out to our viewers for being here. Thank you so much, Lynn, Robert Osborne. Thank you, Tachi, for participating. Thank you, Kente of Indie Radio. Thank you, Uncle Bert, aka Chad Eckert. And of course, thank you to our guests. We have a few comments in here that I'll go ahead and read. Before I read one of the questions, Tachi was commenting on the comment that Chase was making, right? The border across Mexico. She also said immigrants built this bloody country. And she's saying yes. Oh, hey, Steph. Also, Steph, thank you so much for joining us. Steph is my co-host on another show called Hers, Mine, and Yours. So thank you, everyone who is joining us. Now to get to Lynn's question. And I'll let you tackle this one first, Dr. Lee. Lynn says, while on the topic of work, how do you manage the cultural differences in the workplace? For example, work ethic and mixing personal life with professional life.
I don't even know how to begin. So I'll start with cultural differences in the workplace. And my approach to that has changed over the years. There was a time where I chose to just ignore things that I didn't understand or that others didn't understand. I'm just not dealing with it. I'm just here to do my job. And then as I became more conscious, more woke, if you will, then I realized, that I cannot complain about ignorance and at the same time not do anything about it. And so where I was able to, I would try to have conversations with folks, but it's really difficult because you have to share things that are really personal to you, and you don't know how that person is going to take it. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know if they're going to respect the things that you have to say. There's a lot of unknowns about it. And so, to be quite honest, I'm still figuring it out. There's some things that, people think, people in my office, I think they talk crazy sometimes. But I have to choose in that moment whether or not I'm going to engage in that. So in terms of cultural differences and managing that, it's just day to day. I don't know if I have a particular approach that I would say that I use. It's just however I feel like I can handle it at that time. When it comes to mixing personal life and professional life, that was really a struggle for me because as far back as I can remember, folks, to me, work is work. You can be friendly with your coworkers, but you're not coming to the house like that. To me, those are two completely separate areas. And it was really kind of difficult for me to hear folks in the office talking about what happened at home and what do you think? And I don't know. You should ask your husband. I don't know what he was thinking, So I don't have the exactly. So it was really difficult. So I kind of compartmentalized very well. Having worked here now for several years, I feel like now I'm kind of blurring the lines a little bit. being more open with my employees, because I feel like that's a value at my workplace, is that people, you share with each other, and that's how you build kind of community in our department, and become kind of like a family somehow. And there's things that you have to share about your personal life in order to accomplish that. And it's important to me to feel comfortable where I work. And so I have chosen to blur the personal professional life line over time. But y'all still not coming to the house. So
all right, Leanne. Well, before I go to Leanne,
well, some of y'all can come to the house.
Lynn Roberts says to your comment, Crystal, she says exactly. And Steph says, I'm from the States and I don't invite my coworkers to my house. I'm coming over. Well, I don't work with you. So, well, we doing a show together and I'm coming over. And Lynn also says, Crystal,
no problem,
she says,
Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you. And Leanne, what has been your experience?
So, for me, I've always just wanted to be myself, so, get me 100% Guyanese and everything that goes with it, right? So in my workplace, part of me is really insular as well, too. So I compartmentalize a lot. Then, you have people, and then I was in a managerial position, too. So you have people coming to you and talking to you about problems that I felt was none of my business, but in order to get a good work environment, you have to listen to them. So because of that, over the years and listening to everybody else's issues, I started sharing some of my own and became a family, type of family. Good example was my baby shower. Half of the people there were people I met at work, so that sharing led to family and camaraderie. Yeah. Why are you laughing at me, Lee?
The chat.
Me? Oh, I'm not here in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, I'm laughing at Steph.
Well, Lynn Roberts Osborne, I was laughing at Crystal, who's my wife, because the topic of how to get along in the workplace has always been near the top of our discussions, and so I'm quite familiar with that. I think personally, I am a bit of a chameleon, and so I do as the Rush. When in Rome, do as the Romans. So I very quickly suss out what the climate, what the culture is at whatever particular place I work, and I move along to go. I get along. If something if something clashes very much with my ideals or my morals, or I don't feel like doing it, I'm not going to do it. And I recognize that as a man, and a large man, I have a different perspective in terms of my privilege. If I say I don't want to do something, people don't stand there and argue with me. But I've witnessed, instances where either people with a language barrier or not necessarily familiar with the idioms get invited to do something, and they're like, well, I'm not really comfortable doing that. And people are like, no, you should do it. And I can see the terror in their eyes, like, no, please don't make me do this. But they can't communicate forcefully enough, or they're in a position where their opinion is not respected. And that has always driven me nuts. Like, I can never understand how, when something is not mandatory, how you can force someone or try to force someone into doing it at the workplace. If it has nothing to do with their job, don't force them to do it. And that's the only thing I think that working in America has weirded me out with, is the forced team building. Either we're a team or we're not. And if you're trying to build this team, then don't make me do anything. That's not going to make us into a team. That's going to make you and me into opponents.
No shade.
And I'm going to win. So.
No, this is good. So more people are putting comments in the chat in terms of their how work and personal kind of cross. Steph mentioned that someone at her job told her about she only had $2 in her account, so she couldn't go to happy hour. She also told about when she went to the bathroom, she had to do number 2. So I think one of the things here in the States is that they do. Yeah, that is too much information, but there is a lot more blending in it.
I don't care what planet you're from. That's too much information.
That's good. Oh, and Lynn Roberts said to Chase, good points that it may be different based on gender, and she said thanks for that. A little bit of a shift, and as members in the live chat room, please do, if you have any questions for our guests, please do post them, questions, comments, anything that you have while we have them, because we have about 10 more minutes, and I want to make sure that they get out everything and share everything that they want to share, and that everyone here gets the information that they need as well. So one of the things that we didn't really touch on, but I know someone is going to ask me about, is you could explain to everyone what is the difference between a visa and a green card? What is the difference between a work visa and a school visa? And what is the difference between all of that and permanent legal residency and citizenship? Go.
All right. I got it. So, first things first, a visa is simply an entry document, right? So a visa is how the good folks at the immigration and what's it called?
Homeland Security.
At the airport, when you come to America and you get at the airport, they look at your passport and
border control,
see whether or not you are allowed to enter the country. The visa tells them that. There are different kinds of visas. There are student visas, which are designated by the letter F. So you have an F1, who's actually the student. An F2 visa is for the spouse of a student. I think there's an F3 that's for a child of a student, and so on. There's the B visa. B1 is for business, and I think B2 is a visitor's visa. So the visa basically is an entry document, and why you enter the country is the designation by letter will tell the immigration officer, why are you allowed to be here? Is it for business? Is it for pleasure, for vacation? Are you a student? There's also the H-1B visa. So I think the H visas are for folks who come here to work, and H-1B is for a skilled worker. So as far as I understand, they have different ways of determining skilled. For me, I have a doctorate in my field, and so that's how I was eligible for an H-1B visa. And so I'm eligible to work. So each visa has different rules, and these rules have changed over time. When I first came to college I was on an F1. The automatic amount of time that you were given on an F1 visa was 5 years. Post 9/11, they changed that to only allow you to stay for the stated duration of your program. So my first visa was 5 years, but my second visa was only 2 years because that was the length of my master's program. And then my next visa was 4 years, which was the length of my PhD program. H-1B visas, they're valid for 3 years at a time, and you can renew it once. So you can be on an H-1B visa for up to 6 years. After that, you gotta go home, unless you are able to, whether through a family member or through your employer, whether you're able to file to obtain legal permanent residency status. You have legal permanent resident status if you have a green card. So the green card is how they designate that you have legal permanent resident status. Is that right, John? Okay.
It's not green either.
You can take it from here.
Yes. I would add also that so the visa, as mentioned before, is an entry document, and so the visa is valid for a certain number of years. that means that once you're within that period, you can come and go as you please. One of the struggles for immigrants is not being able to go home and come back. And so if your visa is expired, but you're still legally in the country, which can happen, it means that you can't travel and go home and come back, which if your life is here, then that's just a very frustrating and concerning thing looming over your head. There are different reasons this may happen. Sometimes it's because you're trying to adjust your status from one visa to another visa, or from one visa to permanent residence, or straight towards citizenship, whatever. I think so. People think, well, you have a visa, that's it for life. Well, no, like has been mentioned, visas expire and they have this time frame within them being valid. But also, just because you have a visa does not mean that you can do everything that someone who lives in the stated country can. And so some visas allow you to work, other visas don't allow you to work at all. Student visas come with a provision where you can do a year of OPT, optional practical training, and so you can work for a year in the field of your studies after graduation. But other than that, students can't work legally in the United States. So there are different classes of visa. When you move from the green card, basically means you have you're here, you're good, you're landed. This is where you live now. And yes, and you have the ability to work. You can't vote. You can only vote if you're a citizen.
Green card, it's just the voting piece of it. Because when I have my green card, I can do the same thing that I can as a citizen, except maybe some government jobs that require citizenship. I couldn't do that with my green card, but now that I am a citizen, I can apply for all of those jobs as well as and vote.
Yeah, I think legally and in terms of paperwork and time-wise is a long step from a visa to a green card, and the same length from a green card, or a slightly shorter length from the green card to citizenship. But in terms of how you feel as a person, for me, I can say that once I became a resident, it was a lot more obvious to me, and that I belong here now, and I can't imagine my life would change very much going from being a green card holder to a citizen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Dear God. Steph is asking about fiance visa, which that designation is K, and I think that only a U.S. citizen can apply for a fiance visa on behalf of a person who is not a U.S. permanent resident or citizen. Well, obviously, who's a citizen of another country. And I think they have a limited amount of time to get married. So I think it's like 90 days. Don't quote me. I think you have 90 days to get married. Oh, hell. Okay.
So for people, so when this replay, it's not going to show the chat. So just to let everyone know who's watching the replay, go ahead and let her know what you laughed at. Let everyone know what you just laughed at.
Steph says that she had a man from Zambia who was trying to be her fiance, so that's why I laughed. I don't have anything to say. I don't have any answers for you. That's your choice. That's your choice. But they are very.
Maybe she should have given him a try.
So Jonathan and I are married. I'm on an H-1B. He's a permanent resident, and so he has submitted a petition on my behalf to get my green card. And the process is the most tedious, time-consuming, stressful thing I have ever done. I have done surgery. I did a dissertation. I did 4 years of a PhD program, and that application nearly killed me. And that's just step one. There's so many ways that you have to prove that this is a legitimate marriage. We had to have affidavits from our friends, letters from this. I had to prove that we were all on the same, we were financially intertwined, right? So if you want to go through it just for the K visa, whatever, do it. But It's tedious. It's tedious.
So I'm good.
Steph says I'm good.
Steph says she's good. She's
Looks like homie from Zambia is out of luck.
So, Leanne, you wanted to add to that?
To what?
To any other conversation around the different statuses of the different types of visas, green cards, or anything like that?
Well, just that it's not that easy to get one. It's not easy at all. Even though we came through the diversity lottery, for us, I say we had a smoother transition because with the lottery, everything is there. It's already in place. We started out at a different place than Crystal or Jonathan were. We got a green card, immediately. So after that, it still took a while because you had to be here for maybe 3 years, I think it was. You couldn't be involved in any crime, so no, I'm not a criminal. Okay.
They haven't found the bodies yet.
No. Yes. No, you couldn't be involved in crime. You couldn't have you had to have a job and prove that you were gainfully employed and all of that before you could even apply to become a citizen. And once you did that, of course, it took more time and more money in order to do it. The thing to know is that it's not cheap. Okay, this whole process is not cheap. It's very expensive. Every time you submit a new piece of paperwork, it seems like you have to have more fees. And if you were here illegal and you're trying to become legal, then those fees are way more astronomical because you have to involve lawyers and all of that. So the process is not cheap.
I think there's one thing I would add that citizens may not necessarily recognize or appreciate. So every time you come into the country, you're greeted warmly. Oh, welcome back, da, 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 if you're a citizen. If you're a green card holder, you kind of get the same kind of thing. They only look at you slightly sideways. If you come in on a visa, they look at you up and down every which way. When I was on a student visa, I was on a student visa, I was Black, I was from the Caribbean. Every time I flew, I got randomly searched, every single time. And I think something that people should appreciate, because you hear a lot with the refugee comments, of people are worried about, well, are these people going to come into our country and wreck it? Are they going to come and do something dangerous? Well, anytime someone's not a citizen and they come into the United States, the level of scrutiny that they face is incredibly high. And so the chances are it's not going to be someone who came in here on a visa. Like immigrants, and this is a statistic, this is a factoid that does not get reported. Immigrants, I don't know if it's illegal immigrants included as well, but people who immigrate legally to the United States are far less likely to be involved in criminal activity than citizens. We're not the problem.
Really
We're just trying to get by.
This experience just came to mind. I think Jonathan has also had this experience where I was a student, I was on an F1 visa, and I'm coming back into the country. I think I was coming back to when I was in Delaware, so I was flying into Fort Lauderdale or Miami somewhere. And when I hand my passport and my visa and everything to the immigration officer, he looks at it, he scans it, he does his little swipe thing, he makes his little notes, and then he closes it, and then he calls somebody else over. So then here comes homie, and he has like a gun on his hip, and he has like the baton and the flashlight and the whole thing. And he hands him my paperwork. This happened to me twice. He hands him my paperwork, and the guy says, "Come with me." So I go with him because I don't want any problems. So I go with him, and he puts me to sit in a room that's literally, it's just 4 walls and some metal chairs and the best air conditioned unit in all the world. It was freezing in there. And in the corner is some guy who's being deported, and he's in like handcuffs, and I am freaking out because I haven't done anything. I just want to go to school, and they have me sitting there, and I sat there for maybe 40 minutes.
Wow.
And then they came back, handed me my stuff, and told me to have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So it is psychological torture.
Yeah, of course.
I understand that, there's processes that you have to go through. All right, do you want to do a random checks every time I travel? That's cool. I got it. But you have got to tell me something. Like we're just checking something or whatever. Like it is the most difficult thing to sit still in a cold room where you don't know where your stuff is. You have your connection to catch, and nobody tells you anything. it's a really difficult experience to have, especially to have multiple times. And I was by myself. I was 17 when I came here the first time. I was 18 the first time that happened to me. I don't know what to do with that. And I'm just grateful to get out, because homie's still over there in the handcuffs. And this is clearly the room where they keep people who are being deported. Am I being deported? Nobody's telling me anything. So it was just a really stressful. And I think that one of the things that folks who are citizens who were born in America, who belong in America, don't understand is that the life of an immigrant is a very stressful. It can be very stressful. Waking up in the morning, there are so many things that you have to think about as an immigrant that you don't have to think about as a citizen. For me, every time I hear sirens behind me, it freaks me out, because I know that if I get pulled over one time, I don't know for sure, but if Steph says her too.
Listen, you forget we brown people in here. All these black and brown people, police freak all of us out, okay?
You are absolutely right. But they're not sending y'all anywhere. Exactly. We're going to go to jail.
Yeah, but you might go to jail. We're going to go out of the country.
Some people, they don't have lives where they're from anymore. All their families here. I've heard of people who were sent back to Jamaica for whatever reason. They're living in the street. They don't have any family there anymore. They were deported. You don't even get a chance to go pack anything. You just get back on the plane and go home. So the possibilities are awful. And, having to carry that with you every day is an added stress that I don't think the average person really understands.
Yeah, I believe that.
Appreciates.
I definitely believe that. So we are a little bit over the hour, but I still want to, I don't know. I think immigrants might be treated a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if there's a hierarchy of oppression, but I think that when you are,
10 times worse.
Everybody got problems.
Right. But I think that there are some intersectional identities that are compounded. So you get whatever for being woman. You get whatever for being black. You get whatever from being immigrant. So it's just like you're just not getting it from one direction. So when you have those compounded, it's just
correct
additional stress. And I can't I have a few friends who are immigrants with varying statuses. And one of the challenges that she has, and I'm gonna try to say it without breaking down. So I'll just mention it briefly, is she gets taken advantage of a lot. Like when I say a lot, like in terms of people have her working and they don't pay her, or they'll just put her out, or they just do all types of evil things to her, and she don't feel like she can call the police. She feels like completely alone. And seeing her experience and it's not just one. It's like I can name like 5 of my friends that have where they have people taking advantage of them because of their citizenship status. I have a friend who she's a legal immigrant here, and her employer kind of holds the fact that she's here on the type of visa that she's here on as like, I don't want to say slavery, because that might be a dramatic word, but it's like, you only here because you work here.
He sponsored her.
Right. And he does that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that that's something that bothers me. Sometimes the language. What happened? Sometimes language bothers me around in terms of us calling people illegal. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that bother me. I would like to hear, before I let you guys go, because we're talking about a little bit of the challenges, and I definitely want people to be more informed and educated on that. If you could think of one more challenge that you face because of being an immigrant that you would like to just let people know about, just raise awareness about, and also if you could tell them something that they could possibly do to support or make it easier, even if it's just stop asking you if you speak English.
Be kind to people, I came here I said, when I was 16 years old, and for us, that's our formative or teenage years. So I was uprooted from everything I knew, my friends, my school, whatever. I had to start all over again. And let me tell you, y'all in high school were not kind to me. Okay? They were not kind. So just your words, they be kind. That's all. That's for me.
I think that Leanne touched on an important point of kindness, because I think immigrants are people first. We're all people, and people need to be treated with a certain dignity and respect, and that's very important. I think one way that people can be allies is to advocate for issues that affect people who are immigrants. It might not affect you, but if we start from this place that we're all humans and we all want to be treated a certain way, I think it makes us all play on the same team, and we're far more likely to have unity and success building forward. I think one thing that I've had to face, I am currently underemployed, and I have experience and 2 degrees, and I think potential employers in my field, which is very competitive, look at my experience and they think, oh, I don't know where Trinidad is, or I don't know what kind of work they do down there, but I can't even get an interview for sometimes entry level jobs in my industry. And anyone who would look at my resume or look at my clips can see that I can do this job that I'm saying I'm capable of doing. But there is a stigma attached to people who are immigrants, and I think that's something that has affected me in the past that people might not think of. Me with the 2 degrees, one of them from a prestigious school, and not being able to find work in my field despite having experience.
Thank you all so much. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I understand we're out of time, but just a couple quick things. Again, like similar to what Jonathan was saying and what Leanne had said earlier, the way you treat people is important. Just be kind, be compassionate. Everybody deserves respect, regardless of their choices, regardless of what their situation is. And I also wanted to say that the danger, I can't remember the name of the author, Adichie, who talks about the danger of a single story. There's not one story that covers the experience of being an immigrant. And I think if you just walk into any conversation about immigrants knowing that this one story does not apply to everybody. Thank you, Tachi, for the name of the author. This every situation is not covered under this one story. So just ask the question. Just try to be kind. Try to be understanding. Try to figure out how can you be helpful. Like Jonathan was saying, see how you can advocate even in your own way. Some people aren't built to go to Washington and lobby for, but you can be kind to the person who's next to you. You can be kind to the person who's an immigrant. You can be kind to the person who's on an H-1B visa in your office. Just try to understand individual situations as opposed to painting everybody, like Jonathan said earlier, with a single brush.
Yes. So I dropped a link to Adichie's TED Talk on where she's talking about a little bit more on the danger of a single story. I want to really just thank you guys for being here. Just thank you for adding your voice to the conversation around immigration issues and everything that's going on with that. I don't take the fact that you came to share your stories here lightly at all. I want as many people as possible to kind of, really to kind of know that, like my whole thing around this, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, is about these multiple stories. I also thought about changing the title of the show to The Counter Narrative, because that's what I want to bring to the forefront. Like, it's not just this, the people are not just these labels that we put on them. There's these stories, there's these people, there's these real lives and we kind of seem to pay attention. Thank you, Felix, for sending me a gift. We kind of pay attention to, you like that narrative? I mean, you like that title? We kind of pay attention to like just the mainstream narrative, and we forget all of these other voices. So that's why this show was immigration, not just the Hispanic issue. And I appreciate you all. Thank you so much, Jonathan Chase. Thank you so much, Crystal Lee. Thank you so much, Leanne Toddy. Thank you so much to the viewers who are here. Lynn Roberts, Tachi, Kente from Indie Radio, also Steph, Felix, Chad, people who came and left at different points, people who took the time, they saw this link and they decided to click on it and listen to your individual stories. I appreciate you. I am going to go ahead and drop the link for next Saturday's show, and that is right there. So you can click there and you can subscribe. That show is on Black educators. Well, we will be having 4 education specialists that like are literally like, they're not just teachers, they like study curriculum design and everything like that to get a conversation around what our school system is like. Thank you for the gift, so Steph. I want to do a quick poll and ask people about the title, because I'm really considering this. So it's 10 people, and that includes us on the screen right now in the room. And if you're watching the replay and you're watching this on YouTube, then just write it in the comment section below, actually below Leanne or below Crystal. So and I'm thinking about changing the show title. Overall, my show is You Are Not Alone currently. So if I should keep it as You Are Not Alone, push 1 in the chat. The other title I'm thinking about is calling it The Counter Narrative. That's 2. You just gonna put 2 before I even say it? Oh, okay. And then 3, just call it S.Rasheem Presents. So those are the titles. I see 2 comments. 1 is 3. Okay, so 2 for 2, 3 for 3. Who else? There's still some more of you who haven't responded. Dr. Lee. Oh, yeah, you are. Listen. I'm telling you, you're onto something there. So Leanne typed in S.Rasheem Presents The Counter Narrative. Wow. Okay, that's what it might. That was not enough.
I support that. I support that.
Jonathan is calling for a revote in the chat. The system is rigged. So thank you again. I can't thank you enough. I know that you could be watching anything, spending your time anywhere. I don't take it lightly. So, okay, go.
Listen. I have a name for your show. I have a name. It's a great show. It's a beautiful name.
I don't want your Donald
the best
Trump
name ever. People will wow at how
it's
great
really good name.
The show is.
All the blacks will love it.
because honestly, it could not be worse. It could not be worse. What are you gonna lose?
Right. What do you have? Listen, I'm the best. Listen, I'm the best.
What do you have to
I'm
lose?
so good. Yeah. I'm really great. Really, really great.
Oh my!
The greatest. The absolute greatest.
So S.Rasheem the greatest presents
right.
the counter narrative.
Oh, and I'm going to make America
great again.
Right. So thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and end this event. I hope I get to see all of you or a lot of you at the very least on the next show on Black educators.
Happy hour.
And if you're watching the replay, you need to watch it live next time because the comment section
you
is
are
live.
missing out. You are truly missing out. That's the truth.
It's lit.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.